Welcome back to another episode of Let's Be Perfectly Queer. If you'll remember from last week, we had the amazing and heart-wrenching story of my buddy Ben Rodgers and his experiences with conversion therapy. Ben is back with us again tonight to continue telling us a little bit more about his experiences and telling us, the changes that he's helping to implement to make a difference in people's lives, and how sharing of his own personal experiences is really not only helping but saving lives. So, Ben, welcome back to the show. Really happy to have you back on again to continue our interrupted conversation of last week. So let's kick it off. You were talking about some of the trouble you'd gotten into and a few examples of that. And the one word that kept popping into my head as I was listening to you speak was insidious. And the idea of isolation and brainwashing of an individual to get them to the point that they question who they really are and allow someone else to define themselves for them. I can't say enough about the courage that I hear from your story, and certainly knowing where you are now. I know how strong you are, and not just physically strong, but emotionally and mentally strong as well. So thank you for that. Thank you for sharing your story, and the floor is yours to continue, my friend.
Thank you for having me back. Well, as we left off, I was getting in trouble. I am a natural blonde, but doesn't mean I'm in trouble all the time.
That's not what I've heard, but that's a whole other show.
Hey now. Those are secrets. So as where I left off, I was in the head pastor's office, and they basically forced me into a confession of something that I didn't even know. Like, I had gone back basically to, before I was even really a part of the church, to something I had done then to basically come up with something that I could say to get them to stop accusing me of something.
Right.
So literally I was like, I was chatting with this guy online type thing, and they're like, you must condemn your sin, blah, blah, like, and like, it became like this, for lack of a better word, a shit show. I remember the visual of this moment still to this day, because I remember it was really freaking nice outside, and you could see the light like from the windows, but you can't see into his office from outside because it's like reflective. But like, I remember a very like visceral memory of like that light and just wanting out of that room. Just just knowing that where I was in a wrong place, even though I couldn't do anything about it because, well, these people are supposed to be the ones that are right.
Yeah.
The straw that broke the camel's back, however, was the last time I got in trouble. So I ended up finishing a year of the Bible school, which pretty great. Cool. School's always good for you. Except I was learning a lot more about hypocrisy. I was learning a lot more about, a bunch of negative issues that were popping up in kind of the everyday for me. The fact that I can't think of a proper way to put it without potentially insulting someone else. Because to survive, like you said, like brainwashing, like stuff like that, to survive that is a difficult process in and of itself. And it's not that a person can't be smart and still undergo that. It's you give yourself to something because you truly believe in it. It'd be like going to a protest and chaining yourself up to doors for something that you're completely passionate about. It's the same thing that goes on in your mind. You basically chain yourself to the thought process of what they tell you to do. And because that's the supposed to be right path, you keep yourself chained.
Right. And these are the people that you're supposed to be able to trust to help you stay on the right path and make these changes, right?
Exactly. And So the straw that hit the camel's back, I was working at Queen's University, actually, in their cafeteria. I was the ice cream man. Everybody freaking loved me because I always gave better scoops than all the other people that worked there.
I don't doubt it.
Hey, all I got to say is your best person to have behind any food counter is a fat dude. Just putting that out there. We know how to eat.
I can relate.
And so another person that I was actually in school with also worked in this cafeteria, just in a different section than I did. I didn't realize just how much I was being watched during the process that I was a part of this church until this end bit. Because the new schedule had come up, and I'm sure you've worked in a place where you have seniority, right? And people who are a higher seniority can basically steal your shift.
Right.
Well, that's the kind of place it was. And the new schedule went up, and I was looking at my shift, and this girl comes up behind me, and she was a bad attitude type person. We'll just leave it at that. She comes up behind me, and she's like, "Yeah, I'm taking your Friday shift." I was like, "Okay, well, did you want to switch or something?" And she's like, "No, I just want that shift." Just like complete rudeness, and it was just like, okay, well, I need the hours too, like I'm here for a reason. So later when I was signing out, I was with a friend of mine that worked there, and we were signing out, and I was like, she was being a real bitch with that. And that ended up somehow being overheard outside of the office, reported back to the guy I was in church with, and he reported it back to the school, back to the church.
Wow.
I got called into the new dean of the church's office, which is a current mayor in a municipality that I have been working to fight against CT. Mm-hmm. So people can take that however they choose and write whatever kind of letters they would like, because and so I ended up getting sat down and once again told that what I was done was not appropriate and was not the kind of attitude and dignity that a person of Third Day Worship place almost messed that one up of that church. And I was kicked off my ministry duties for an ungiven amount of time at this point. I was kicked out of school. And I was very specifically told that I was no longer allowed down in the kids' end of the church.
Wow.
Period. That one pissed me off. It's like, it's one thing to, say I'm off my ministry duties, which would include doing kids' church. It's another thing to very specifically tell me that I'm not allowed near the kids' end of the church anymore. Now you've stepped the line. No. And so I definitely questioned that one, and I had issues with the whole process after that, and I left the church. I was like, you have nothing holding me to you anymore. I was living in a closet of a younger couple's from the church. I moved to this younger couple's place partway through the school year, and I was in a bedroom to begin with. Their mother needed to come because they were pregnant and getting ready for a baby. So apparently their mother needed to come live with them. So she got my room, and I was moved into a crawl space closet. Literally, there was enough room for a couch, but that much space, about a foot of space in front of that couch that I could walk in front of. And I had these two shelves at the far end. And if you looked in between that middle shelf and looked to the right, you saw the front steps of the house.
Wow.
I literally lived the gay Harry Potter lifestyle. Talk about living in a closet, right?
Jeez.
So got to go through all that, and I was just done. It was like, no, I'm being treated like absolute crap by the people who are supposed to be, my friends, my family, my leaders, my mentors. What's wrong with this picture? What have I actually done to deserve to be treated like a lesser person? Nothing. I was trying my hardest to do everything I was told, and I was shit on for it. So I was like, all right, I need to move on with my life. I need to figure this out. And basically, I did a cutoff. And I cut off everything to do with that church, everything to do with that past bit, just like I was taught. Also not realizing that I was cutting off a good chunk of, the person that I was, because they had made me block it down and cut off a lot of my creativity, a lot of, my gayness, and it got stuffed into that vault as well. And I spent years basically trying to figure out, what was wrong with me. I delved into drugs as, a source of comfort. I delved into sex as a source of comfort, looking for, that thing that would fill, for lack of better statement, fill the hole. That
fill the void.
Yes, thank you.
Although I like your analogy too.
I mean, for some reason, a Boston cream donut just popped into my head. Wow. Maybe that should be taken out in editing later. Who knows? But yeah, so I left. I took a general arts and science semester at St. Lawrence. I started basically just moving forward. It was difficult at St. Lawrence because I was in school again with people from the damn church. So I figured out the only way I could to cut myself off from them, and that was to move into music, try to move into the arts as best I could, try to avoid, the group that they had starting. And I ended up going into student government, found out that apparently I'm really good with people, even though I'm kind of an introvert, which is weird to say. I call myself an antisocial socialite. Probably, weirdly enough, that is the easiest way to describe me.
Yeah, no, I totally understand that. For sure.
But I mean, I did a lot of cutting off, and I mean, I ended up moving to Toronto. I lived there. I did photography out in Toronto, did wedding photography for a while. I've done a spectrum of jobs and different things. And I look back now that I actually understand what was going on, and I realized that a lot of what I was doing were all the same things that I was taught and were controlled into my brain from that church. And, I ended up getting diagnosed with HIV 6 years ago, and that changed my life drastically. Initially, I thought I was dead. Then it was, what the hell can I do with this?
Yeah.
And I turned it into something super positive and started affecting change wherever I could. Well, now I ended up with that chance again. Last year, I ended up with a chance to speak out against the church that committed the conversion therapy against me. And so I spoke to the news, and all I wanted was to tell the truth. I couldn't stand to see this church in the media doing the same stuff that they were doing 16, 17 years ago when I was there. To this day, still the same anti-LGBT rhetoric, still the same racial, it's disgusting. Like, it irks me. And I became angry. It wasn't fear anymore. It was anger. And it wasn't shame anymore. It was, I'm going to knock you down and take this back. And so, I spoke and I cried. I cried a lot. It's a very emotional story, and it's
absolutely.
I get shaky and talking like this too.
Take your time. I mean, and I think you've hit on a very important aspect of what a lot of us have in the spark of our activism and advocacy, whether it be around HIV or anything else we're passionate about. It's that anger and that frustration and that feeling of, what? Enough is enough. Just because it happened to me doesn't mean that it needs to happen to anyone else. If I can affect change to ensure that my story is heard so that others don't have to go through the same crap that I've had to go through, then exactly. I'm going to do it. And I feel a responsibility to speak up and talk and share my truth. And I think that's for organizations like this church, that's a scary thing to come up against. The truth, the truth that they preach about and the truth that is the actual truth, two very different things. So yeah,
well, I mean, weirdly enough, they may have actually got something right one of their guest speakers that they had come and actually do a prayer thing over all of us, and they basically prophesied over all of us. And he told me that I would one day be speaking in front of nations.
You're getting there.
They weren't entirely wrong. But again, this was a preacher from outside of the church, so I mean, he could have actually been legit.
Right.
But I mean, hey, something good might actually come from it. I'll go with it. But I mean, so with speaking out, that ended up leading to another really great and terrifying opportunity, and that was to be able to speak in front of City Council in Kingston. One of the counselors there, Bridget Doherty, she read my story and basically started doing research and looking into conversion therapy and Sojais. And she was just like, this can't be possible. Like, this is so wrong. And she started the process of getting a motion in place, to which I actually got to speak on. And I told my story in front of City Council, in front of the mayor of Kingston, who also was part of my conversion therapy. Whether he was a big part or a small part, he was a part of it.
Wow.
And that's another topic that we could talk for about an hour, and I could tell you some real frustrations with. So I'm just going to move on from that one. But yeah, I had a chance to speak and let them know and understand that this is more than just wrong. It is torturous. It is harmful. It is destructive. And to allow it is allowing that to happen. And I feel this for every level of government, federal, provincial, municipal. If you are allowing conversion therapy to happen and you have the capabilities to make some form of change to stop it, then you are purposefully allowing it to.
Yeah, if you see something wrong and you allow it to continue, then you're complicit. No question. Exactly. No question. Especially something like conversion therapy, where the statistics that I've read anyway is, what is it? A third of folks who have gone through conversion therapy have also attempted to take their own lives. And I'm sure, and I don't know what the percentage is of those who have been successful in doing so. So it's not only dangerous and torturous, but it's murderous. It's killing people.
Well, if you think about it, last year's Sex Now survey found roughly 47,000 LGBT men. That doesn't include the women, who are guessed to estimate around the same, if not higher, numbers, have gone through some form of conversion therapy or change efforts. That is roughly, I believe it was 1 in 3 or 1 in 4 gay men, basically. And which would mean like probably 1 in 2 to 1 in 3 lesbian or gay women. Those numbers are astounding, because if you think about it, those are the ones that are alive to still tell the story.
Right.
Not the other tens of thousands that have taken their own lives, been killed in the process. I mean, like, if you go back into some of the earlier efforts that they were doing, they literally were beating people, electroshock therapies. Like, when you talk about beating the gay out of someone, there's a reason why that phrase exists. And it's not because of the horrible people that just are anti-gay. It was the people that were trying to change them.
Yeah, it's not figurative, it's literal.
Yeah. And so that was my first chance to really speak to the torture, quite directly, actually, with a person's face right in front of me. That like it was hard to actually talk that day, because I was literally facing one of the people that caused the harm, essentially. And we ended up getting a motion put forward that is creating a bylaw in Kingston. And that bylaw I have actually seen the rough draft of, which literally just makes me explode with happiness. Awesome. Why are my comments coming out so dirty on these videos? Like,
got nothing to do with me.
Yeah, sure. um, sorry.
But no, in all seriousness, that's a huge accomplishment to have a bylaw being worked on and fingers crossed passed in a city like Kingston that actually speaks to your experience and will allow for some real change. And I'm guessing the wording is acceptable and proper wording based on your reaction as well, which is something that I think we're hearing different things around some of the wording involved in the federal legislation. What is it, Bill C6 that's been introduced, and some of the definition and terminology around conversion therapy just is a little too loose, for lack of a better word.
That's the easiest way to put it. I mean, they're trying to keep it broad for a very particular reason, and that's so it can cover as many people as sort of possible in that broad spectrum. So like on the federal level, I kind of get why they're doing it. Just could they do better? 100%.
Right.
When it comes to this municipal bylaw, they are pulling pieces from the provincial rulings that came out with Bill 77. They're pulling out pieces from other municipal bylaws that have passed throughout other provinces, and using those wordings and those little catches to kind of encompass a little better through the means of licensing. So basically, you would have to have your medical licensing from whatever school of wherever to be able to practice any form of true therapy, counseling, or otherwise.
Right.
And according to Bill 77, that automatically should prohibit conversion therapy. However, under that umbrella, they do try to get away with it by calling it talk therapies and, conversational therapies and things like that. Well, as soon as you add therapy or counseling or anything to it, you automatically just stump yourself, first and foremost. And that's kind of what they're trying to work around. Will that be the be-all, end-all in 2 and 3 months? I don't know. But as of right now, I'm very hopeful and very excited for the way it's looking. It doesn't put the onus on the survivor. It puts the onus on the place that is committing the act, which already surpasses any other thing that I've really seen. I like part of Quebec's law, to be honest, which offers any survivor basically the opportunity to accuse their, culprits. And I just used the wrong word there, but basically gives them the opportunity to accuse and a process to go through so that the survivor so I would be able to basically charge my church, like the church that I went through.
Right.
Even though it was 16 years ago, I'd actually be able to go after them for what they did. And I would love to see something like that, but municipality can't do that one.
Right. But I mean, it's progress, and for a field that I think there's probably lacking folks that are really out there pushing this change. I think that's fantastic. And you talked about, not putting the onus on survivors. And I think that's incredibly important, and being able to actually believe survivors and being able to validate their stories. And I think we don't have a whole lot of time left to chat, but I want to make sure that you tell us a little bit about what you are doing to help survivors.
Absolutely. Yes. So I have decided to take, all of the negative and all of, the new energies that I have and switch it over to something amazing. At least in my mind, it is more than amazing.
It is.
In Canada, we have no actual support systems for survivors, which is a really harsh thing to realize with how big our country is, and the fact that, we have Bill 77 in existence, we have other municipal bylaws and different things that are existing, but where are the services that should come with those? They don't exist. So I decided that in a similar structure to how the AIDS service organizations began, to start a support group. Conversion Therapy Survivors Connect, a support group for survivors started by a survivor to develop connections and create what is going to be the first ever support system for survivors. And the supports are going to be developed based on the actual needs of the survivors that come to the support group.
Wow.
And so, I mean, I tell you, it's been an adventure going from, you know, literally last year, terrified to even speak out, to the holy crap moment of actually doing it, to getting a bylaw happening, to speaking, and I got to speak to Saskatoon's upcoming bylaw. I'm working with Kitchener, Waterloo, and Cambridge. There's a group that's working there. I believe Thunder Bay or North Bay, one of them anyways. There's some people that are trying to set something up there, and a few other cities. So Barrie, I think, would be a great city that should follow some of this lead.
Agreed.
And I'm always happy to offer assistance and a voice to any wonderful person who might want to help push that along. Hint, hint, nudge, nudge.
No hinting and nudging necessary, my friend. I will do anything in my power to help you spread the word and get the message out. I am absolutely an ally. I am incredibly proud of the work that you have done. The survivors group is, I think, essential. The whole idea of it being peer-led too, because we know that, you know, peers talking to peers and lived experience being shared is incredibly powerful. And to be able to do that for other folks, you are a hero, my friend. And I think that's, I don't say that lightly. I think that's a wonderful thing. Your experience, not an easy one to talk about, absolutely. But the idea that you've been able to turn that around and be, as I said before, resilient in what that means, and really be an example of how taking a negative in your life and turning it around and not only helping yourself in doing that, but in helping so many others. Yeah, I'm proud of you. You should definitely be proud of yourself. I foresee amazing things in your future and in the future of so many others that have had to go through the trauma and torture of conversion therapy. So from the bottom of my heart, I thank you for sharing your story with us over these last 2 episodes. I appreciate your honesty. I love your humor, and I just, anything that I can do, and we'll share some of your contact information for folks on the screen who are looking to get in touch and join your groups as well. So thank you so much for being with us, Ben. I really appreciate it. And thanks to all of you for joining us for another episode of Let's Be Perfectly Queer. Have a good night.